"Don't touch her!" The maid stands up to the cruel stepmother to protect the millionaire's daughter. Mornings in Vermont always began with a honey-colored light slipping through the red maples of early fall. The dirt road leading to Maplewood Farm still carried a thin veil of mist rising from the damp grass. At the end of the road, a weathered wooden sign read faintly, "Maplewood Farm, Eston, 1952. The lowing of cows mingled with the soft whisper of wind brushing the barn roof. The smell of roasted coffee drifted from the main house, a scent that made the silence feel inhabited, as if someone was quietly fighting off loneliness. Ethan Walker, 45, owner of the farm, stepped onto the porch. Broad-shouldered and calloused from years of labor, he still carried a look of quiet exhaustion. Folks called him the richest farmer in Addison County. But wealth had meant nothing to him since his wife Claire died in a winter storm 3 years ago. Since then, the big house still woke with the sun, but warmth no longer lived there. Upstairs, his 10-year-old daughter Lily stared out the window where light painted the wooden frame. A year ago, a horse-riding accident had broken her leg and left her walking with small crutches. From that day on, Lily spoke little, smiled even less, communicating through small notes on her door or a gentle nod. Ethan loved her so deeply it hurt, yet her silence frightened him. He tried to fill the void with work, checking the roasting machines, inspecting the barns, signing delivery papers. Still, every time he walked down the long hallway toward her room, his heart tightened, as if afraid of what he wouldn't hear. That morning, the sound of heels echoed on the wooden floor. Vanessa Miller, his fiancée, appeared in a beige dress, holding a cup of coffee. The scent of her expensive perfume mingled with the coffee's warmth, making the room feel strangely foreign. "You should shave and head into town today," she said softly, but her tone carried command. "I've set an appointment with the interior designer. I want to redo the living room, make it brighter, a little more sophisticated. This farm needs a touch of life." Ethan only nodded. He didn't want to argue before breakfast. Vanessa came from Boston, a woman of elegance and precision, beautiful, polished, and cold. Meanwhile, Martha Green, the elderly housekeeper, folded napkins quietly at the table. She knew the rhythm of this house, knew when Ethan was weary, when Lily felt alone, and when Vanessa was only pretending to care. Outside, the fog was lifting, revealing the apple orchard behind the barn, the place Claire once loved to pick fruit each fall. The gate to the orchard remained locked. Ethan hadn't touched the key in 3 years. The farm worked as always, the hum of machines, the trucks rolling in, the workers calling to one another. Yet inside the wide wooden house with its wraparound porch, the air was thick with emptiness. Ethan sat on the steps, coffee steaming in his hands. He didn't know what weighed heavier, the silence of the farm or the emptiness inside him. Upstairs, Lily cracked open her window, listening to the wind move through the maples. The breeze carried the scent of soil, of coffee, and of quiet sorrow. She closed her eyes, imagining her mother's laughter somewhere in the crimson woods. The morning looked ordinary, but beneath its stillness, something was waiting to change. The old blue bus stopped by the dirt road, dust rising in the pale morning sun. Clara Jensen stepped down, carrying a faded canvas suitcase with worn leather straps. Inside were only a few clothes, a small Bible, a floral-covered notebook, and a photo of Emily, her sister, who was undergoing dialysis at a city hospital. A breeze swept across the fields, carrying the mixed scent of roasted coffee and dry hay. Clara took a deep breath and looked up at the wooden sign reading Maplewood Farm. She whispered to herself, "If God allows, this will be a good beginning." The walk from the bus stop to the main house was nearly a mile. Dust clung to her shoes, but her eyes held that quiet resilience of someone who had long learned to endure. From afar, the 2-story wooden house appeared, wide porch, large windows, surrounded by pasture. It looked warm, yet lonely. On the porch stood an elderly woman in a gray apron, wiping her hand on a cloth, smiling kindly. "You must be Miss Jensen?" "Yes, ma'am." "I'm Martha Green, the housekeeper. Mr. Walker told me to meet you. Long trip?" "It's fine. Thank you, ma'am." Martha opened the gate and led her along the stone path to the house. "We work hard here, but don't worry. Folks at Maplewood are good people. Mr. Ethan's strict but fair. And the girl, Lily? She's a special one." Clara simply nodded. She had learned to listen before speaking. Inside, the wooden floors shone with wax, and the walls were lined with old photographs. A blonde woman smiling beside a tall man and a little girl. Clara knew instantly that was Claire, Ethan's late wife. She paused for a moment, bowing her head slightly, as if in silent greeting. "Your job's simple," Martha said. "Cleaning, laundry, preparing the parlor. Ruby handles the kitchen. Tom works the barns. Around here, we live like family, as long as everyone respects one another." Clara smiled. "All I need is honest work, and a little peace." That first morning, she tied on an apron, pulled her hair back, and began. Her hands moved lightly, no slammed doors, no chairs scraping the floor. When she swept the hall, it looked as though she were brushing a child's hair. Martha watched her for a moment, then murmured, "You've got healing hands, Clara." Clara only smiled faintly. By noon, the sun stood high. Ruby Johnson, the warm-hearted cook, brought out a plate of apple pie. "Have a bite, sweetheart. Everyone new to Maplewood has to try my pie." Clara thanked her and took a bite. The mix of sweet and tart softened her chest. That afternoon, she cleaned the living room windows. From there, the orchard shimmered gold, apples swaying gently in the wind. Upstairs, one curtain stirred. Behind it, Lily watched quietly. Their eyes met for a brief second. Clara smiled, gave a small nod. The curtain fluttered once more, then closed. Clara returned to her work, though something warm flickered inside her, a tiny spark of knowing she might be exactly where she was meant to be. That night, when the house fell silent, Clara sat by the small attic window of her modest room. She opened her floral notebook and wrote, "First day at Maplewood. No one here knows the true name of their sorrow, but I can feel it. Perhaps I meant to clean it away, one speck of dust at a time." On the third morning at Maplewood Farm, dew still clung to the red maple leaves, and the ground was soft from the night rain. Clara Jensen carried a bucket of water down the upstairs hallway, mopping the floors. Each room had its own scent, pine in the parlor, coffee in the study. But the last room at the end of the hall was different. It was silent, almost sacred. As she knelt to scrub the floor, she heard a small clink. A tiny metal horse toy rolled out through the half-open door, stopping right by her feet. She tapped gently on the frame. "Excuse me? Is someone in there?" Inside, Lily was stretching with a ruler, trying to reach the toy. Her crutches rested by the desk, one leg bent, face damp with the effort. When she noticed Clara, her eyes flickered with hesitation, the kind of look of someone who doesn't want to be seen. "Let me help," Clara said softly. She knelt, reached under the bed, and pulled the toy out. "Here it is." Lily nodded, lips moving without sound. Clara sat on the floor, smiling. "This little horse looks fast. Does it have a name?" The girl hugged the toy to her chest, then pointed toward the window, to the wide fields beyond. Her eyes said what words couldn't. "It used to run out there." Clara understood. "Yeah, I bet it misses those fields. But you know what? This hallway's a pretty good racetrack, too. If you want, I'll be the referee." The corner of Lily's mouth trembled, almost a smile. It was tiny, but it warmed the whole room. Clara didn't say anything more. She stood up, picked up her cloth, and continued cleaning, leaving behind an air just a little lighter, as if wind had finally passed through a sealed space. That afternoon, Ethan walked down the hallway and stopped. His daughter sat on the bed, rolling the toy horse across the blanket, a quiet giggle escaping her lips, a sound he hadn't heard in months. He froze, gripping the banister. He said nothing, only watched. For the first time in so long, he saw a flicker of light in his silent child. That evening, while Clara was tidying the kitchen, Ruby placed a cup of tea before her. "What did you do upstairs, honey?" "I swear I heard Lily laugh." Clara smiled, her voice barely above a whisper, as if afraid to break the spell. "Nothing much. Just a little horse that learned to run again." Ruby nodded slowly. "You don't know what that means. This house hasn't heard laughter in years." Life at Maplewood Farm slowly found its peaceful rhythm again. Every morning, Clara Jensen swept the yard and spread the coffee beans to dry, her soft humming blending with the breeze. Old tunes once thought forgotten by time. "If this road were mine, I'd scatter roses along the way." In the afternoons, she cleaned the office, polished the wooden porch, leaving behind the faint scent of coconut soap and sunshine. When night came, she folded the blankets neatly, and each time she passed by Lily's room, she knocked 3 times, a gentle habit, warmer than any greeting. Sometimes she just opened the window to let the moonlight in. Sometimes she left a small note on the desk. "The clouds look like cotton candy today." "There's a little squirrel on the maple tree. I think it's stealing apples." "If you can, let's race our bikes this afternoon." Lily never answered with words, but those notes were gradually gathered and kept neatly in a small box by her bed. Sometimes Ethan would walk in and find his daughter smiling at them, as if holding a tender secret. At night, Clara looked out the window and saw the light from Lily's room still shining. She knew someone inside was reading and believing, even if just a little. One morning, Clara brought a wild rose in a small, clear glass jar. "May I leave it here? To make the room feel a little less lonely." Lily looked at the flower for a long while, leaned closer to breathe in its scent, then nodded softly. She placed the jar beside her mother's photograph, her eyes lingering on the reflected light as if guarding a fragile treasure. But peace at Maplewood never lasted long. On Saturday morning, Vanessa Miller arrived, driving a gleaming silver convertible. Her high heels clicked on the old tile floor, and her expensive perfume overpowered the scent of freshly roasted coffee. She wrapped her arms around Ethan Walker in front of everyone and smiled radiantly. "This Sunday, I want to host a luncheon. Invite a few friends from Boston. Your farm could use a little touch of city sparkle, don't you think, darling?" Ethan nodded faintly, his smile shattering like broken glass. "If Lily feels comfortable, I have no objection. Children need to learn how to adapt. I brought her some cute little things." Vanessa walked up the stairs without bothering to knock. She set a shiny gift box on the bed. Lily curled up, her eyes fixed on the door as if waiting for someone else, but no one came. Vanessa noticed the cold distance, pressed her lips together, brushed Lily's hair with her fingertips, a gesture brief and careless, then turned to the hallway where Clara was coming up. "You must be the new one?" "Yes, ma'am." "Clara?" She repeated the name, her lips curving slightly, as though tasting something that didn't suit her palate. "I hope you understand order is important here. Everything must stay in its place." "I understand, ma'am." "Good, and don't enter Lily's room without permission. The child is sensitive, easily influenced by strangers." Clara bowed her head, her tone calm. "I always knock first, ma'am." That word, stranger, though light as air, cut deep, another scar layered over old ones. On Sunday, the dining hall glowed under candlelight and red wine. Vanessa laughed loudly, telling travel stories, speaking of New York as if it were the center of the world. Ethan barely listened. His eyes kept drifting toward the staircase, where no one was coming down. Lily didn't attend the party. Clara brought a small tray to her room, chicken soup, toasted bread, and warm milk. She knocked gently and entered. Lily was sitting quietly by the window, the afternoon light falling across her face. "Not hungry?" "Not much." Clara sat on a nearby chair, saying nothing more. The silence between them was soft as steam from tea. After a while, Lily glanced at the rose in the jar. "It'll wilt soon, won't it?" Clara smiled, her voice gentle as the wind. "Perhaps, but its scent can keep the room warm all day." "My mom loved roses, too," Lily whispered, "especially pink ones." "Then tomorrow, if the weather's clear, we'll go to the garden and find some more." "Don't say tomorrow. Grown-ups always say that. Then forget." Clara paused. The words sliced through the air like a small blade. "All right," she said softly. Then early in the morning, when the dew's still on the petals. Lily nodded and ate a few spoonfuls of soup. When Clara left the room, she stopped on the staircase, eyes glistening, not from sadness, but from the ache of having touched a child's loneliness. The next morning, the ground was still wet with dew. Clara followed the back path where climbing roses tangled along the wooden fence. Amid the weeds, she found a small pink rose bush blooming late, its petals thin as paper. She picked a single flower, carefully, as if afraid to hurt it. When she knocked, Lily was already waiting, her crutches leaning by the bed. "They say keeping a promise means keeping someone's trust," Clara said, holding out the rose. Lily took it, pressed the petal to her cheek, and smiled. The days at Maplewood Farm passed in a slow, gentle rhythm, warmer than before. No one said it aloud, but everyone could feel a quiet change since Clara Jensen arrived. Each morning, her soft singing drifted through the hallways, simple old melodies that somehow made the house feel alive again. Ruby often paused in her cooking to smile. Tom Barrett, the farmhand out by the cattle barn, would say, "Even the cows seem calmer when she sings." Lily started leaving her room more often. She sat on the porch with a small book, sometimes placing a toy car on the table, waiting for Clara to pass by. When Clara smiled, Lily would look down quickly, but the shadow had faded from her eyes. None of this escaped Vanessa Miller's attention. One morning, while Ethan was inspecting the coffee-roasting shed, Vanessa stepped out onto the porch, her white dress neat, her blonde hair softly curled, a pink smoothie in hand. Her gaze followed Lily for a moment, then shifted to Clara, who was hanging towels in the yard. "I don't understand why she keeps singing all day," Vanessa said lightly to Martha, though her tone carried a sharp edge. "This is a farm, not a church." Martha only smiled faintly. "Sometimes, Miss Miller, the Lord hears his songs from the most unexpected places." Vanessa's laugh was cool. The housekeeper, like the new maid, had begun to irritate her. But what angered her most was the way Ethan looked at them, a quiet, peaceful gaze she had never received herself. At lunch that day, Lily ladled soup into her father's bowl. Clara stood nearby, pouring water. Sunlight streamed through the window, spilling across the table. For a brief moment, Ethan caught Clara's eyes and nodded a soft, "Thank you." Just a nod, but to Vanessa, it felt like a blade. That afternoon, she went down to the kitchen. Ruby was baking pies. Vanessa placed a bottle of red wine on the table, an expensive import from Europe. "Ethan loves this wine," she said, "but it has to be served properly." "I want it ready for tonight." Ruby replied, "I'll keep it safe until Mr. Walker comes back." Vanessa smiled, but there was a glint in her eyes. "No need. I'll just leave it on the little shelf in the hallway. Easier for tonight." When she left, Ruby hadn't yet cleaned up the area. That evening, the family dined in the small room. No one paid attention to the faint clinking sound from the hallway. Clara rushed out and found the wine bottle shattered on the floor, dark red liquid spreading like blood. Vanessa approached, hand to her chest in feigned shock. "Oh my goodness, that was a Chateau Merville 2010. I brought it all the way from France, and now—" She turned to Ethan. She broke it. Clara froze. "I didn't touch it, ma'am. I just heard the sound and came to—" "How convenient," Vanessa interrupted smoothly. "No one else was here but you." The air thickened. Ethan looked at the shards, then at Clara. In his eyes flickered hesitation, caught between trust and courtesy. At last he said quietly, "It's all right, just an accident." Vanessa pressed her lips together, pretending relief. Yes, of course, just an accident. But in her eyes, hatred had already begun to bloom. As Clara cleaned up, a shard of glass sliced her finger, but she didn't cry. That night, she sat in her small room, staring at the cut. She wasn't sad, just hollow. She was used to suspicion, but this time it hurt differently, not because she was misunderstood, but because of Ethan's silence. In the next room, Vanessa looked at herself in the mirror. "A maid who sings and makes the girl smile," she whispered. "How dangerous." And that was when she began to think about her next trap. After the wine bottle incident, no one mentioned it again, but Clara Jensen knew something had changed in the way Vanessa Miller looked at her. Every time their paths crossed, Vanessa's gaze was cold, sharp as a blade. Still, Clara continued her work with quiet steadiness. She swept the porch, washed the linens, cleaned the rooms, and softly sang the old songs. She didn't let bitterness stain her heart. She only wished for peace to return. Lily, however, was different. The girl had started writing more. The small scraps of paper now carried longer lines. "Today I walked 2 more steps. Ruby said the kitchen feels brighter when I smile." Each innocent line was like a thin thread weaving 2 hearts closer together. One weekend afternoon, Vanessa came back from town carrying a small box wrapped in brown paper tied with a red ribbon. "I have a little gift for Lily," she said, her voice sweet as sugar, but her eyes full of calculation. "The girl needs to learn to taste the sweetness of life." She went upstairs, knocked gently on Lily's door, left the box on the desk, and walked away. Inside was an apple cinnamon pie, a famous treat from town, fragrant with spice. That afternoon, while Clara was gathering laundry outside, Martha came running, her voice trembling in panic. "Clara, hurry! Lily, she can't breathe!" Clara dropped the bucket and sprinted toward the house. Upstairs, Ethan was holding Lily in his arms, her face pale, lips swollen, breath shallow. Ruby rushed for the medicine. Martha called the doctor. "She just ate a piece of pie," Ethan said, his voice shaking. "Just 1 bite." Clara looked down at the open box on the floor, crumbs scattered around, and saw the small printed label, "Made with cinnamon." She froze. Lily was severely allergic to cinnamon. It was clearly written in her medical file since the day Clara was hired. "No, I didn't give it to her," Clara said hoarsely. "I never touched that box." Vanessa appeared in the doorway, feigning shock. "Oh my God, Clara, I saw you take that pie up to Lily's room." Clara looked up, stunned. "No, I didn't. Don't deny it." Vanessa cut her off, tears glistening in her eyes. "Lily could have died. How could you be so careless?" No one spoke. Only Ethan's labored breathing and the hurried sounds of the doctor arriving filled the air. That night, Lily lay unconscious, her breathing faint. Ethan sat by her bedside, hands clenched, eyes filled with pain and doubt. Clara stood outside the door, unable to step in. By dawn, the doctor said Lily was out of danger. Ethan bowed his head, shoulders trembling. When he finally looked up, his eyes met Clara's. There was a long silence before he said quietly, "Clara, I need you to stay away from Lily for a while, until I understand what really happened." Clara froze. The words fell like a sentence. She wanted to explain, but no words came. She simply nodded, turned away, tears slipping down her cheeks before she could wipe them. From her window, Vanessa watched the faint light flickering in Lily's room. She smiled coldly. "Just one bite of pie," she whispered, "and she loses everything." In the small attic room, Clara sat in silence, holding a flower-patterned notebook. She wrote, "I am not angry, only empty. When someone chooses silence over believing you, that pain cuts deeper than any accusation." Outside, the wind moved through the maple trees, carrying the scent of damp earth and chill air. The sky held no rain, yet inside Clara's heart, the storm had already begun. After the cinnamon pie incident, the air at Maplewood Farm felt wrapped in a heavy fog. Everyone still worked, still spoke and laughed when necessary, but deep down they all knew something had broken. Clara Jensen grew quieter as she cleaned. She still worked with her usual care, but she no longer sang. Sometimes Ruby looked at her, wanting to offer comfort, but Clara would only shake her head softly. "Things will clear up one day, Miss Ruby," she said. "I still believe that." Lily was recovering. The girl was weak but awake. Ethan stayed by her side more often now, yet his expression was always heavy, his eyes avoiding Clara's. One afternoon, as Ethan passed through the porch, he saw Clara sweeping the yard. Her head was bowed, her figure small, but her hands moved steadily. For a brief moment, Ethan noticed the exhaustion in her eyes, not the kind that comes from guilt, but from being wounded. He almost said something, but stopped himself. That evening, Vanessa Miller came to Ethan's study. In her hand was a sample wedding invitation, embossed in gold letters. "We should set a date," she said softly. "October would be lovely. Red maples, cool skies, the guests will adore it." Ethan didn't answer right away. He flipped through some papers, avoiding her gaze. "Now isn't the right time, Vanessa. Lily still needs me." Vanessa placed a hand on his shoulder. "That's exactly why you need me. That maid, she only brings more trouble. You need someone who knows how to keep order." Ethan nodded faintly, but his eyes were distant. He wasn't sure of anything anymore. Down in the kitchen, Ruby and Martha Green sat over cups of tea. "Do you believe Clara did it?" Ruby asked. Martha answered slowly, "No, I've lived long enough to know when someone's telling the truth. And Miss Vanessa," she paused. Her eyes lie too beautifully. Upstairs, Vanessa Miller stood by the window, looking out over the rain-damp fields. Her plan was nearly perfect. Lily weakened, Ethan bewildered, Clara pushed to the margins. She needed one final strike, one that would make Ethan never dare look back toward Clara again. 2 days later, the atmosphere in Maplewood Farm changed, quiet, as if even the wind was waiting for something dreadful to happen. That morning, Vanessa Miller appeared in the living room, her face stiff like porcelain. In her hand was an empty velvet box. Her voice rang out, sharp, trembling. "My diamond bracelet, my mother's heirloom, is gone." The sound of spoons in the kitchen stopped. The ticking of the wall clock grew louder, each beat heavy, counting guilt. "Call everyone in here. This is serious." When everyone gathered, she lifted the box, its interior glinting with cold light. Someone entered my room. Martha Green, the housekeeper, asked calmly, "Was your door locked, ma'am?" "I always lock it," Vanessa replied curtly. Then she turned toward Ethan Walker, her eyes glistening with tears, the kind of tears well practiced through years of deceit. "Ethan, I hate to do this, but we need to search the staff rooms. You understand? We have the right." Ethan hesitated. He didn't like the word "we," But Vanessa's tears had already begun to fall, her delicate shoulders trembling just enough to make everyone believe her. "Please," she said softly, her voice breaking. And so he nodded. Martha led the group through each room, her aged face showing clear reluctance. When they reached Clara Jensen's room, Vanessa stood slightly behind, her eyes gleaming with anticipation. The diamond bracelet was found, deep inside a rolled-up sock at the bottom of a drawer. The room fell silent, as if all the air had been sucked away. Vanessa sighed, her hand trembling slightly, her voice a whisper loud enough for all to hear. "What a shame, Clara. I defended you all this time, and yet—" Clara stood tall, her face pale with outrage. "You planted it there." Vanessa smiled, a half-pitying, half-triumphant smile. "How shameless! You dare accuse me of deceit in this very house?" Ethan closed his eyes, pressing his hands to his forehead, his breath heavy. When he finally looked up, he looked utterly tired. "Clara, I don't know what to think, but this is serious. You should take some time off. We'll talk tomorrow." "Tight?" From the staircase, Lily Walker's trembling but firm voice cut through the silence. "It wasn't her." Ethan looked up, at his daughter, then at the glittering bracelet in Vanessa's hand. "Lily, don't get involved." The girl tried to step down, her legs shaking. One missed step. Thud. The sound of her fall echoed coldly through the room. The whole house froze. Clara rushed forward, but Vanessa raised a hand, her voice icy. "Don't touch her." Ruby hurried to lift Lily. Tom pulled a chair closer, the room filled with panicked voices. Vanessa stood still in the center, smoothing her hair as if nothing had happened. That afternoon, Clara quietly packed her belongings. When she stepped onto the porch, Ethan was waiting, hands in his pockets, eyes heavy like the sky before rain. "I don't understand how the bracelet ended up there," he said quietly. "But I have to protect my daughter, this house, everything that's mine." Clara met his gaze, her voice low but steady. "I've protected your daughter with all my heart, with my hands and my faith. The only things I've ever taken from this place are dust from the tables and the scent of coffee in my hair." He wanted to say forgive me, but fear tightened his throat. "I'll investigate. If this was a mistake—" "Mistake or not," she interrupted, "it's still a wound." Clara stepped down the porch stairs. At the second-floor window, Lily held up a pink rose, tapping it gently against the glass. Her small voice carried through the wind. "Clara, I believe you." Behind her, Vanessa closed the curtain, softly as wind, cruel as a knife. Clara walked away, her suitcase heavy, as if she were carrying a soul inside. That afternoon, Tom Barrett walked all the way down to the southern fence line of Maplewood Farm. The sky was gray, carrying the faint scent of rain-soaked earth. From a distance, he saw Ethan Walker standing motionless on the wooden porch, the silhouette of a man drained by things he could no longer put into words. Tom approached and handed him a small USB drive. That night, when everyone was asleep, and the only sound in the house was the wind whistling through the chimney, Ethan went down to his study. He turned on the desk lamp and powered up the old computer. The drive connected, and a few folders appeared on the screen. November, December, January. He opened them one by one. The footage was grainy but clear enough. The living room, the crystal vase on the cabinet edge, a woman's hand in a cream-colored dress tilting a wine bottle, a shadow slipping into Clara's drawer, hiding the diamond bracelet inside. Ethan's heart pounded. He rose abruptly, stepped to the window, and drew in a deep breath, like a man just freed from a buried place. The house was silent, so silent he could hear his own conscience knocking at the door. At noon, when Vanessa entered the study, Ethan was already waiting. On the desk, the USB drive lay neatly beside a cup of coffee. "We need to talk," he said quietly, his voice calm but his eyes sharp as steel. Vanessa smiled, trying to keep her composure. "About what, darling?" "The truth." He turned on the screen. The video played. Vanessa's face appeared in the frame, bending down, opening the drawer, hiding the bracelet. For a few seconds, her face went pale. Then she laughed, her voice rising high. "These blurry clips? Who would believe that? Old cameras, Ethan. They glitch all the time." Ethan said nothing. He reached into the drawer and pulled out a printed photo, a close-up of her hand holding the bracelet. "Glitch or not, whose hand is this?" Vanessa stayed silent. Her perfectly made-up face began to crack. "You nearly killed Lily. You destroyed my trust. And you drove an innocent woman out of this house." "You'd believe a maid over me?" Vanessa screamed, her voice breaking. Ethan answered evenly, "I believe what I see with my own eyes." The air turned heavy. Vanessa stepped back, then burst into tears. "You'll regret this, Ethan. I'll make sure you lose everything." Ethan looked straight at her, his voice low and steady. "I already lost everything. Now I'm just trying to reclaim what I threw away. The truth." He pointed to the door. "Leave now." Vanessa glanced around, searching for a way out. In a surge of desperation, she grabbed the USB and ran toward the kitchen, intent on throwing it into the fire. But Ruby was faster. She turned off the stove, snatched it back, and held the drive high, as if saving a living soul. "I have a copy," she said, lifting her chin. "You could burn 10 of them. I'd still have 11. Ethan took out his phone, his voice cold but steady. "I've called the police. You'll be investigated for false accusation, poisoning, and fabrication, and for everything they'll see on that video." He paused for a moment. "Get out of my house." Vanessa opened her mouth, then went silent. There was nowhere left to go without losing her pride. She could only slam the door, leaving her curses to dissolve in the rain. That afternoon, Ethan went to Ruby's room. "Get the car ready," he said. "I have someone to pick up." Ruby smiled softly. "I think I know who that is." Lily overheard, her eyes lighting up. "Dad, can I come?" Ethan knelt down, resting a hand on her shoulder. "Yes, sweetheart. Clara will be happy to see you." The small town 20 miles away was wet with rain. Outside the hospital, Clara Jensen sat on a wooden bench, her old suitcase beside her, eyes lowered to the rain-streaked road. She had just taken her sister Emily to her dialysis session. A white pickup truck stopped by the gate. Ethan stepped out, rain soaking his shoulders. Lily followed slowly, leaning on her crutch, each step trembling but determined. Clara looked up, startled. "What are you doing here?" Ethan removed his hat, his voice thick with emotion. "To apologize." He took a step closer, meeting her eyes. "I was wrong, Clara. I believed lies instead of the truth. I hurt you, and I regret it." Clara stood still, the drizzle falling gently on her hair. "The past is over, Mr. Walker. Some wounds don't need to be mentioned to still hurt." Lily's small voice broke in, clear yet trembling. "It's not something that's over. It's something that needs to be fixed. I tried to protect her, but no one believed me." Clara knelt down and gently embraced the girl, careful not to hurt her fragile legs. "It's all right, Lily. You've spoken, and that's the bravest thing of all." Ethan said slowly, "I want you to come back to Maplewood Farm, not as an employee, but as part of this family." Clara looked at him, her eyes glistening. She was silent for a moment before she replied softly, "I'll return, but under 3 conditions: respect, truth, and that Lily follows her own pace." Ethan smiled, his gaze lighter, as if the rain had washed away the weight from his heart. "Agreed." Lily smiled too, her eyes shining like the first morning of autumn. The truck pulled away from the town. The dirt road leading back to Maplewood seemed brighter after the long rain. And there, among the red maple trees, trust had finally returned.